Hello and welcome to Byju's Exam Prep IAS. Let's get started and look into our daily quiz. Before we start with our today's practice questions, we have three important announcements. The first, today we would not be having the Hindu analysis which will be uploaded on our YouTube channel. Why? That is because yesterday being Ganesha Chaturthi, the Hindu has not published today's edition of the Hindu, which is why we will not be having the CNA which will be uploaded at 7 p.m. The second announcement is in reference to the free workshop which will be conducted by Sarmad Mehraj sir on 3rd of September at 6 p.m. So what is that you have to do? This will be exclusively on our Byju's Exam Prep application. Download the application, for which the link will be given in the description box as well. All that you have to do is download the application and you would be able to attend this free workshop where this will explain how you can clear the civil services examination in just first attempt. The third announcement is in reference to the weekly explain session. As part of the explain session, tomorrow's topic discussion would be droughts and heat waves in Europe. Please do tune in live on our YouTube channel at 8 p.m. so that you understand everything about this topic. Let's get started and look into the first question. With respect to the office of Chief Secretary, which of the following statements are incorrect? It was created in 1799 by Lord Cornwallis, the then Governor General of India. The Chief Secretary is chosen by the Governor from the senior IAS officers of the state cadre. The office of Chief Secretary has been excluded from the operation of the tenure system. Which of the statements are incorrect? Since it is asking for the incorrect statement, the answer to this is 1 and 2 only. Why have we taken this practice question? Because this article on the Indian Express makes a reference to Chief Secretary. Let us try and understand what are these options. When we look into the first option, it was created in 1799 by Lord Cornwallis. This happens to be a wrong statement. That is because it was created by Lord Wellesley and it is not Lord Cornwallis. And do note, UPSC can also ask the chronological order as well. So you have to remember the chronological order of the Governor Generals of Bengal. So the first statement is wrong. When you look into the second statement, the Chief Secretary is chosen by the Governor from the senior IAS officers of the state cadre. This once again is a wrong statement. Why? Because the Chief Secretary is chosen not by the Governor, but he is chosen by the Chief Minister. When it comes to the executive, what we have is the political executive and what we also have is the administrative executive. Who heads the political executive? It happens to be the Chief Minister. Who heads the administrative executive? In this case, it is the Chief Secretary. So the Chief Secretary is selected by the Chief Minister from among the senior IAS officers of the state cadre. So the second statement is also wrong. When you consider the third statement, yes, the office of Chief Secretary has been excluded from the operation of the tenure system. This statement is right. So the Chief Secretary happens to be the executive head of the state secretariat. He is also the administrative head of the state administration and stands at the head of the administrative hierarchy. And what are the functions that he does? He is the advisor to the Chief Minister. So the Chief Secretary acts as the principal advisor to the Chief Minister. So in case the Chief Minister requires some inputs or he wants to take a decision, he can always go back to his Chief Secretary. So it is the Chief Minister who consults the Chief Secretary on all policy related issues when it comes to the governance of the respective state. He is also the head of the civil service in that state as well. The Chief Secretary acts as the head of the state civil service. He deals with all the cases related to appointment, transfers and promotion of senior state level civil servants as well. So remember, when you consider the first two statements, it is wrong, which is why the answer to this would be A, which is 1 and 2 only. Now let's look into the next practice question. Consider the following statements with respect to anti-radiation pills. Anti-radiation pills do not provide 100% protection. The pills can be consumed by individuals of all age groups except pregnant and breastfeeding women. Which of the statements given above are correct? The answer to this is 1 only. Why have we taken this practice question? Because this article on the Indian Express makes a reference to anti-radiation pills. Let us try and understand what are these options. When we look into the first option, the anti-radiation pills do not provide 100% protection. Yes, this statement is right. When you look into the second statement, the pills can be consumed by individuals of all age groups except pregnant and breastfeeding women. This statement happens to be a wrong one. That is because this pill is not meant for everybody. Instead, they are recommended mostly for people who are under 40 years of age. Pregnant and breastfeeding women are also advised to take them as well. So remember, the major criteria is it is usually given to less than 40 years individuals, and at the same time pregnant and breastfeeding women are also advised to take this pill. Now the question is, what is this anti-radiation pill? What we are currently witnessing in Europe is there is one of the power plant called as the Zaporizhzhia power plant. This can also be important from the preliminary examination point of view, where they may ask you where is this Zaporizhzhia power plant located. So remember, it is in Ukraine. As of now, there is an apprehension that there might be radiation leak from this particular power plant, and if there is the radiation leak, this could ultimately harm people in that particular area. So what has the European Union decided? It has decided to preemptively supply about 5.5 million anti-radiation pills to be distributed among the residents in the vicinity. So what we have is a concept called as radiation emergency, which is an unplanned event or an intentional act that creates a radionuclear hazard to humans and the environment. So potassium iodide tablets or anti-radiation pills provide some protection in cases of radiation exposure. They contain non-radioactive iodine, which can help block absorption of radioactive iodine in the thyroid gland. So this helps in kind of mitigating the impact of absorbing radioactive iodine in the thyroid glands. How the pills work? After radiation leak, radioactive iodine flows through iron and then contaminates food, water and soil, while radioactive iodine deposited during external exposure can be removed by using warm water and soap. But then internal exposure occurs when radioactive iodine enters the body and accumulates in the thyroid gland. To mitigate this impact, what we have is called as the anti-radiation pill or potassium iodide tablets, and once this is consumed, it will mitigate the impact. Now let's look into the next practice question. Which of the following statements are correct? The Competition Act 2002 prohibits anti-competitive agreements, abuse of dominant position by enterprises, and regulates mergers and acquisitions. The objectives of the Act are sought to be achieved through the Competition Commission of India, which has been established as a statutory authority. It is the duty of the Commission to eliminate practices having adverse effect on competition, promote and sustain competition, protect the interests of consumers, and ensure free trade in the markets of India. Which of the statements are correct? The answer to this is 1, 2, and 3. Why have we taken this practice question? Because this article on the Indian Express makes a reference to the Competition Commission of India. Let us try and understand what is this Competition Commission of India. We will also understand what are its functions and what is this Competition Act of 2002. When you speak about Competition Commission of India, this happens to be a statutory authority. So the second statement is right. So this is passed by a law of the Parliament when they passed the Competition Act of 2002. So the Competition Act of 2002, yes, prohibits anti-competitive agreements, abuse of dominant position by enterprises, and regulates mergers and acquisitions. So what we require is an institution and an authority which will oversee all of this, which is why we have the Competition Commission of India. And yes, it is a statutory authority and not a constitutional body, and can also be an extra constitutional authority, that which is not mentioned in the constitution. When it comes to the commission, it has some of the fundamental objectives. One is to ensure freedom of trade, is to protect the interests of the consumers, to promote and sustain competition in the market, and also prevent practices that can have adverse effect on the competition. So basically, whenever there is a particular company, it merges with another company only to prevent competition in that particular area. This can be regulated by the Competition Commission of India, and the Competition Commission of India also has suo motu power as well. It can take it on its own basis to inquire whether an anti-competitive agreement or abuse of dominant position is likely to cause adverse effect on other companies as well as the consumers. So remember, it can also take a particular initiative on a suo motu basis as well. Now let's look into the next practice question. Consider the following statements with respect to by-elections. By-election for filling any vacancy should be held within a period of 6 months from the date of occurrence of the vacancy. It finds a mention in the Constitution of India. Such an election need not be conducted if the remainder of the term of a member in relation to a vacancy is less than 1 year. Which of the statements given above are correct? The answer to this is 1 and 3 only. Why have we taken this practice question? Because this article on the PIB makes a reference to the by-elections. Let us try and understand what are these options. When you look into the first option, by-election for filling any vacancy should be held within a period of 6 months. Where is it? It is in the Representation of the People's Act. We have one of the sections, 151A. It goes on to say time limit for filling vacancies referred to in sections 147, 149, 150 and 151. So this basically highlights for which of these bodies can the election commission conduct the by-elections. This is for Rajya Sabha, this is for the Lok Sabha, casual vacancies in the state legislative assembly as well as for the state legislative councils. So for all these houses and bodies, what we have is the by-elections which can be conducted by the Election Commission of India. So a by-election for filling any vacancy referred to in any of the said sections shall be held within a period of 6 months from the date of occurrence of the vacancy. So the first statement that is given here is correct. When you look into the second statement, it finds a mention in the Constitution of India. This statement is wrong. Why? Because it is finding a mention in the Representation of the People's Act of 1951 and not in the Constitution. The Constitution does not have anything to do with the by-election. It is mentioned in the Representation of the People's Act of 1951. So third statement says such an election need not be conducted if the remainder of the term of a member in relation to the vacancy is less than 1 year. What do you mean by it? This statement is right. Let's assume for a moment there is one of the person who's been an MLA or an MP, let's say for about 4 years, and let's say after 4 years at about 9 months remaining or 10 months remaining or 11 months remaining for fulfillment of 5 years, this person passes away or this person resigns to that particular role as an MLA or an MP. In that case, since the time period is less than 1 year, in that case the Election Commission of India need not have to conduct the elections. Only if it is more than 1 year, in that case the Election Commission of India will have to conduct the by-elections. Let's say the person has completed 3 years or he's completed 2 years or he's completed 3.5 years as well. In that case, since it is more than 1 year, by-elections will have to be conducted for that particular constituency. But if it is less than 1 year, by-elections need not be conducted. So what is by-elections in this particular case? Generally, elections happen in the general elections, but if a person is already elected and if that person passes away or he resigns and it becomes vacant for some or the other reason, that is when by-elections will have to be conducted by the Election Commission of India. Now let's look into the next practice question. Consider the following statements. Pursuant to the report of H.N. Sanyal Committee, the Contempt of Courts Act of 1971 was passed. The Constitution of India empowers the Supreme Court and the High Courts to punish the contempt of themselves. The Constitution of India defines civil contempt and criminal contempt. In India, the Parliament is vested with the powers to make laws on contempt of court. Which of the statements given above are correct? The answer to this is 1, 2 and 4 only. This happens to be a previous year question from the year 2022. So remember, the third statement is wrong. That is because the Constitution of India does not define civil contempt and criminal contempt, which is why the third statement is wrong. Now let's look into the fact of the day. The fact of the day for today's discussion is NDPS Act. What does it stand for? It stands for the Narcotic Drugs and Psychotropic Substances Act of 1985. What does it speak about? This is about regulation of the drugs. This happens to be the primary legislation for dealing with all kinds of drug related issues, trafficking related issues, and this was enacted back in the year 1985. This policy was basically taken up because we have one of the articles in the directive principles of the state policy, which is Article 47. When you look into the NDPS Act for a specific drug, what has it done? It has divided into what is called as the small quantity. Then what we also have is the commercial quantity. For every drug that is present on this particular act, what they have defined is small quantity. Then what they have also defined is the commercial quantity. So whether a person possesses small quantity or commercial quantity, on the basis of this is when the court will impose penalty accordingly. Who can add a particular drug into this act? Who can delete it? It is only the central government. The state governments do not have the power. It is only the central government who would be able to add a particular drug, who would also be able to delete a particular drug from this particular NDPS Act. This article here makes a mention of bhang. Bhang happens to be edible preparation made from the leaves of the cannabis plant, often incorporated into drinks such as thandai, lassi along with various foods. And at the same time, since bhang is not mentioned in this act, the person need not be imposed with penalty. However, for whatever is mentioned in the act, whether the person possesses small quantity or commercial quantity, what he possesses, on the basis of that, penalty will be imposed. So contravention that involves a small quantity, let's say 100 grams of charas or hash or 1 kg of ganja, will result in rigorous imprisonment for a term that may extend to 1 year or a fine which may extend to 10,000. But if it is a commercial quantity, which is 1 kg of charas, hashish or ganja, rigorous imprisonment of not less than 10 years, which may extend to 20 years, including a fine that is not less than 1 lakh but may also extend to 2 lakh, says this article. So on the possession that they have, the quantity that they have, imprisonment will also be imposed, says this article. It is this that we have to understand with respect to this article. So this is it for today. Thank you for watching. All the best.